Daremos início.
We are going to start the panels for this afternoon. I would like to thank our sponsors, Brazilian Agency of Promotion of Export and Investment, Apex Brazil, Brazil Port Terminal, MSC, StoneX, Port Authority of Santos, a public company connected to the ports and airports for the federal government, Contegram, New Coffee, LDC, Cofai, Sucafina, Cochupé. And special thanks to the Via Green Institute that will measure our carbon impact so that once again we can deliver an event that is 100% sustainable. And TVJ that is covering the event. So our content on stage go through the graphic facilitation. We have our artists here next to the stage and they will contribute drawing everything and making all the illustrations and that you can follow in our app. Now let's have our panel like supply and demand. I would like to call the mediator Carlos Santana, who is the commercial director of the Interagrícola and VP of the Commercial Association of Santos. I would like to call Mr. Oscar Schaps, director from StoneX Financial Division from Latin America. And Mr. Claudio Delposte, research analyst from the Rabobank Brazil. I would like to call Mr. Carlos Santana. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have the challenge to be the first one after lunch. But I'm sure that you will love the data we're going to present to you. We're moving to the last stretch of this wonderful event of the Commercial Association. And as a reminder, this is the 25th event. The first one was in 1972. And since then, we've been keeping the tradition and the focus to generate value. I always like to mention that a seminar has two products. We have the network that we deliver and information value that we deliver to the participants who come to the seminar. We're going to talk about supply demand. The group of content, they felt that need, and in the previous edition we mentioned that, and we felt this need of bringing back a panel that is focused on data, which is what we have today. We have Rabobank and StoneX and the research team from these companies talking about their perspective of offer and demand around the world. I'm quite sure they will love the information here. We also have the possibility of asking questions, and at some point, the organizers will show you the QR code. So I apologize because it depends on time constraints. We'll try to bring as many questions as possible, but I cannot guarantee 100% that we can cover and we can answer all questions. Another important point, I would like to thank Rabobank and StoneX, and this material is fully available. So please contact the Commercial Association. They will kindly divulge these presentations. And speaking of the presentations, I would like to call my dear friend Oscar. He has a long-lasting career in the coffee market, more than 30 years. And the interesting thing is, he's also a producer. He's the fourth generation of a family of coffee producers in Guatemala and El Salvador. This is a way that he manages his stress, being a coffee producer, and I'm quite sure that he's going to bring valuable information. Oscar, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. It's such a great pleasure to be here. Good afternoon. I hope you haven't eaten so much because the information I have is truly important. So I don't want to see anybody dozing off here, okay? Because otherwise you're going to lose the impact. So thank you, Santana, the organizers representing StoneX. It's a little bit weird that I can't hear what I am saying, but we always have challenges. And this one is easy. I mean, compared to what we're going to talk now, it's the most difficult challenge we have in the last 3 years. So I'll try to bring more sense and to bring some more information of what's going on in the last few years and what we think that can happen in the years to come. This is just a disclaimer. Please read, because everything that I say can be completely different from what I thought. So we have the disclosure. Read thoroughly, please. So I think we've all been living of this volatility that you've been seeing with coffee. And I'm going to supplement here. We have so many young comers in this group, in the world coffee, in the coffee world, actually. When I first came to Brazil in 1990, we weren't that many young people, but now we are the old ones. But I see how coffee is going to continue. And congratulations to all of you, and welcome. I would like to welcome the new generations. But you have to start learning about how markets evolve and how coffee generally is one of the most volatile commodities in the world of commodities. And changes that you can see here in this diagram, how the taste and the demands for coffee change. In the last 20 years, what we used to drink from Robusta and how Robusta is today, like 35 to 40%. And this blend and this recipe to have coffee around the world. And all that makes a lot of difference as to how we think about the differences in between markets and to make the difference with coffees. That all affects. So I would like to show you and discuss the macro vision first, and to show that we have many moves, and we're talking about like 20, 24 years. So some time ago, it was like that in our market. In here we see prices and behavior. In the darker part, it's Arabic and Robusta, and the lower part. And for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about why and what do you think it happened in the markets and that might happen further on. From January to June 2025, we started witnessing like effects of storage in the world were being reduced. It may be obvious for some of you, but it's obvious that Brazil is the one that places the price. When I started working with this, like in 1992, a magazine asked me to write an article of what I thought about coffee and who would make the rules regarding coffee. I said, well, you have to look at Brazil. If Brazil has like a high crop, the market is going down. If Brazil has problems with coffee, the market is going up. But the other kinds of coffee doesn't make much of a difference in the price for New York and London and all the differentiators. Okay, they mingle, but the main player is Brazil. It was and still is and still growing. So we have the frustration of that crop in 2025 and 26. We started having less coffee for offer. And the biggest producer, I would say the biggest producer of Robusta was, I usually say, Brazil. I mean, you cannot give an idea to Brazil. Any agro product, you cannot have that idea and tell that to Brazil because they will quickly become number one in anything. Cattle, corn, orange juice, soybeans, Robusta. So we must keep that in mind. And because of that, when we had during the COVID and we said this has problem in Brazil, had those frustrations from 2021, 22. So the market starts moving. And as you can see, the market went up, and around March, it starts going steady of those historic peaks. And what was that? It was these months that Brazil starts to have the harvest. So we have the mid crop is releasing. Central America is about to finish our crops in Colombia. So the market goes down, but it's not the real problem because we start feeling that in the market and we start having the problem of the inversion in the market. It's more expensive at the front rather than at the back. And that brings complications for those that are used to store coffee in the cash and carry. So we come to June and we can see that the market is low and we're trying to do things like to keep everything normal. And with that, as I was talking to Santana early this morning, what was going on with the storage in the world? And you can even sum here 20-something millions of bags that are not in the system because of the lack of production. Last year we still have the leftovers, but where are these storages? Where is it where you can see the bars on the right? You can see like the stock of the consumption ratio. So from my experience, when we see this ratio is above 25%, the markets are in the low. But when it comes closer to 20, the markets are going up or there's lack of coffee. And then you might think I'm going to stop a little bit because I have this hypothesis, and those who know me, they know that I tend to overthink of some things and I think differently from the rest. As you can see here, the consumption shows 5 million drop from 24 to 2025. In my opinion, these are the numbers that analysts see, and this is the number that we can find out why consumption decreased. Let's think like Oscar. I don't think consumption has gone down. I think consumption of coffee is growing steadily, like in 1-2%. And I didn't think that the consumption had dropped. Maybe it was like a displacement, but not dropping. So you see, this is consumption of 5 million. That's an issue. It's an impossible thing. So it's impossible. And the question is, the world has got rid of storage, and you have the feeling that any kind of coffee to be roasted and then drunk, they left the basic storage, the comfortable, abroad. So today, in my opinion, the only thing that would explain why we are 3 years of inversion in the market, it's because consumption was not in 168. It's because this displacement, this moving of all participants, but the stock to users ratio that reached 21%, for me, is lower. There are storages in the world that you just can't see. Roasters, they have here, there, and everywhere. So this number we see here that we analysts see as coming in and out, I accept it because this is what makes the market. But so why, or is becoming, is still inverted? Because I think that this number from 2021 used to be lower, and we are reaching a moment that, imagine that it's like a bicycle. If you go back to 2008, that the world economy came to a halt, it was like a bicycle. So we still have coffee flowing from country to country. Some countries provided support actually this consumption, and we didn't run out of coffee. Well, we never will, because very soon there is a whole calendar of which country produces how much. So that might step. So we have to keep our eyes peeled and to see when the market is going to revert that to a cash and carry. So apart from everything that happened in the fundamental level, we've had a Donald Trump effect. So we had a dry weather in Brazil, so the climate, many people say that there is no climate change. I think there is. I have hard concrete data from farms. They are different. They are way different from what they used to be when I started talking to my father about that. So less water, more heat. But never, ever we had such a heavy blow as to when Trump decided to have like the tariff surge. And we know that he was making a fuss. It's like the baby, like you're throwing out the baby with the water. So that stress, as Brazil dictates the price, coffee was expensive, it was not doing well in the US, and it affected everyone, the flow, logistics, and it went up again. And it affects all kinds of coffee. And then we had another, we are expecting for November, and Trump had already removed the tariffs and the game starts flowing, and I think we reach the market top. So from that moment until now, we have like a market in a low move. And estimates of Brazilian crop is big. It's a record. I've never seen so many people like going to the sides. I mean, we have people asking about like a higher or a lower crop, but everybody is going through that way. And then Vietnam coming in. We have about offer. It's moving, the logistics are moving a little bit better. And everybody sees we're starting like pushing coffee abroad from what they're doing right now. So this is the StoneX estimate. Our team studies a lot. If you follow StoneX Brazil's work, Brazilian potential is very good. We have analysts, we have agronomists trying to do it. It's not that we always hit bullseye. No, it's a constant watch, constant research about trends, and we have to work with the group, and we have to measure our work. But it is a large number, and without a doubt, that's going to happen. So our estimates, we are in 75 million of bags. I've heard 78, 72, but for me, it's not what makes a difference. But we are going to have plenty of coffee. We'll try to turn that table, turn that game around. I think we still need one crop like this in Brazil. So within that de-storage that we have, somebody told me in 1990 that when that kind happened, a thing happened to Brazil, actually to Brazilian coffee, the buyer ended up buying two bags, one for their own storage, so that they keep like strategic storage. They buy one, and they buy another one to roast. Okay, because then you must get ready for the next cycle. So we are all hoping that that coffee would reach the market because there is plenty of coffee, and we would help to unlock this reverse. I don't think we're going to have like a booming growth and to have certified coffee in the market because this is an example. So it will come to the warehouse. So, they're going to have like a strategic storage, and the other one they're going to roast. I say that we have to wait until the bloom for the following crop, so that we can start moving.
I don't see that moment coming. Let's talk about Vietnam. We saw a change from 35 to 45% in Robusta consumption. Vietnam has had its challenges, but it's doing better this year. I think it will do well next year as well. Let's talk about climate. It's hard to be able to foresee coffee prices if you're only thinking about the weather. You never know what's going to happen. I always say that I'd like to come back as a weatherman. Why? Well, if I make a mistake today, my clients remember that I was wrong. But if the weatherman makes a mistake, he'll still get paid. It's okay, he makes a mistake, people make jokes. Not for me. And that's why I don't like to talk too much about climate. Let's talk about commodities now. Last year we started talking about it, and here is an example of Brazilian force. I always say this: high prices are the cure for high prices, and low prices are the cure for low prices. So we had high prices for 2.5, 3 years, give or take. Look what happened. Look what this did to Brazil. Over 300 million seedlings. It's more than the whole of Central America, and over 500 million with Arabica. Where is Brazil going? This is Brazil's answer to high prices. Notice the market trend. So there's no reason that price would go back up. Yeah, I've seen people selling by 350, 4. Good luck. I'm a producer myself. I'd be very happy to sell my coffee for $5. Reality is different though. Year by year, coffee is always teaching us. And I say watch out, because Brazil is coming down heavy. So we must be watchful. Now let's talk about inflation. And how it impacted prices and coffee prices. Brazil will suffer most. Others also felt the impact. Part of the costs were absorbed by roasters and retailers. But we didn't see a drop in coffee consumption. But our friends, buyers on the other side, suffered. There were people buying specialty coffees that had never seen such expensive coffee. They had been making money for years. That year was different for them. And maybe that was one of the reasons why coffee prices didn't fall as low. And this example is more clear in Brazil's case because Brazil is more vulnerable to those surges. I know we have trade houses here, exporters, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of complaints about that. Brazil might have chosen to share these surge this price change with the consumer, and I think that would have impacted the situation very differently. There are many problems. Um, today coffee may need to go through the Red Sea. So this is one of the many factors that complicates logistics. It's very complicated. I was thinking about this during the presentation. Normally, whenever there's a war, gold prices go up. Because there's inflation, war, gold prices go up. But gold's expensive these days. Obviously, since we're talking about the Middle East, you have to expect oil prices to go up. But during peace times, the oil price go down, oil goes up. When you say that Trump was upset at the Iranians and that he was about to start bombing them again, oil prices will surge. That's fine. But why does gold go down? I don't know. Maybe it's because it's in the hand of speculators. It shouldn't be like that. Both should go up, both should go down at the same time. We should understand these surges in the market. I don't at this time, but what we need to do is watch the markets and respond accordingly. Another point is people exchanging goods for fertilizers. Here is the blue line, today's prices, averages. And notice here a ratio of 1 to 2. Potassium is not as serious, but look at sulfur nitrate, urea. The reason why? It's because that's the area that produces most of those products. Let's move forward. El Nino. Yeah, I don't bet on climate. It's a problem if it comes. Well, what if it doesn't? Yeah, if I'm in a futures market of coffee, I need to be careful. What if there's a weatherman that says a lot of predicts a terrible weather, and El Nino is not an easy problem to deal with. I say that this is one factor that brings down the frost risk. Harvest should probably do well. But now let's talk about the blossoming time. This is when I think Brazil in the 60 plus. But El Nino could be frustrating. What if the weather is too hot, too dry? Then Robusta numbers will go down. Maybe the weather is good for Arabica. But if you think about October and November and you don't have rain soon enough, you may have problems. So that's El Nino for you. It's still too early in my opinion, but we should keep an eye on it. Could bring us serious problems. And here's the calendar I mentioned earlier. Here we're thinking again about that wheel of the coffee delivery. That's what helped us to bring these stock and storage problems. Yeah, coffee keeps moving around. And people worked around it. They created new blends. And here is Brazil playing a big role in the international market. But here is the answer to how we got to where we are. This is why there's always coffee. We never run out of it. According to our numbers, we should have 10 million profits, which should help us to increase stocks. What I don't know is whether that 10 million will help us reach the numbers that we're expecting. I doubt it. Maybe we'll reach 5. I don't know. We have to wait and see. Well, nobody can tell the future. We don't know how much coffee was actually hidden. We don't know whether we should be looking at a bearish market or whether there will be some correction to that inversion that I think we can say that we're all tired of dealing with. If I'm right, this ratio supply here might be different. Maybe instead of going over 25 like I mentioned earlier, maybe it'll stay a little below that. So according to that math, but coffee is very complex. There are many variables. It's an agricultural product. But I don't think this is a catastrophe for everyone. Hey, I'm a producer, farmer. So what are the main factors? Why does it go up? Why does it go down? Bullish factors are reduced stocks in between crops, worry about frost. That's not a big concern for me. El Nino impacts. But let's say the war carries on or some sort of stress that deals with it that may impact in a surge in coffee prices. So these are some of the bullish factors. And now let's think about bearish factors. We should just say Brazil. Exceeding stocks that we should start to witness. The Brazilian pressure on its harvest. We're noticing that not too many farmers are pushing for it right now. What's going to happen with Robusta stocks? After all, we're not talking about a 20% contribution. It's more like 45% at this point. I hope this helps to give you an idea of what we're thinking. Yeah, and maybe we can talk again in 18 months. Thank you. Amazing. Oscar. Hats off to Stonex. I was just saying to Oscar that Stonex is about to nominate you as their ambassador for the next 2 years. There's no question about it. No, hats off to the board. I'm very happy. You delivered it on exactly what we were looking for. Personally, I was missing this type of presentation with lots of information and slides. So please thank the research team at StoneX. I'd like to say something else. You mentioned the new generation that's entering the market. We're very resilient. We have gone through financial crisis, wars, even a pandemic recently. In December, we saw record prices for this commodity. Demand is still growing, and I share your opinion. And they show further possibilities. Sometimes what's available out there isn't as assertive as we wish it was. But one thing is for sure is that Brazilian demand is here to stay. I also was very pleased to hear your comments about the share of Robusta in the world market. I have a question that's also a bit of a provocation. There are many Arabica coffee co-ops in Brazil. They are located in the main coffee producing regions in Brazil. Today you mentioned that 45% of consumption is reflected in Robusta coffee. What's Stonak's perspective? Are we going to keep growing on Robusta? How do the co-ops that are focused on Arabica dealing with it? What's your take on this trend? Is the rhythm of Robusta growth likely to overtake Arabica? Thank you, Santana. Thank you. In terms of Robusta coffee, here's what I can tell you. There are two ways to read the situation. First, coffee blends at different times, to be more precisely now, well, they should make coffee more accessible, cheaper. And that's why it moved more quickly, it's cheaper to produce, and that's why Robusta was so popular. But here's what doesn't concern me. Robusta is an entry-level coffee. Yeah. Even more so for the Asian consumer, a consumer that's more used to drinking tea. They have these products that are 3-in-1. That's coffee, sugar, and milk, and that's how they get into coffee consumption. Once that consumption grows, it grows towards Robusta. But time passes. Now we have a new consumer, a consumer that's interested in coffee, that knows how to brew, and then at that point they'll move towards Arabica coffee. And I'll have to defend my own here because I am an Arabica farmer. Yeah, because so again, Robusta is an entry door for coffee consumption. I don't see a problem with it, even if our growth rates are around 2% a year. Great. Claudio, before I pass you the mic, I have another question. I really enjoyed Stonak's perspective. We are living a profitable time. We have 10 million bags exceeding needed stocks. I was also pleased to notice that you're highlighting a deficit. According to StoneX, we're talking about 21, 22 million bags. I was talking to some of our clients, and I think it's really interesting when we see 2 million bags in exceeding numbers. But let's analyze those numbers. In today's world, we're consuming 175 to over 200 million bags. We're talking about 2 weeks of global consumption. Yeah, the pipeline's empty. It means we don't have any stocks left. It's as if you were closing your eyes, and then when you open again, you have 2 weeks there, 2 weeks covered. That's negative. Let's go deeper into that question. There's a question that's very obvious to us all here. Yeah? When is Brazil actually going to negotiate on that that excess? It's for that reason that I don't think we should work against that inversion. Yeah? That excess is important. You look at the number and you say, okay, great. Let's take that back. But no, you shouldn't. What you're taking back is what was consumed. Fernando and I talk often. And the question is, how much is actually going to appear? It's only going to appear when we can actually look at certified coffee. We have a big problem for the last years. Europe no longer publishes their results. Japan doesn't do it anymore either. And then green coffee in the US does not publish their stock. So we don't know what's happening outside. Well, you can call me alarmist. What they're showing us is what they want to show us. So in order for market to start working with those excesses and towards a cash and carry model, what we need to do is this. Well, let me say this. Nobody likes speculators, but the truth is that we need them. We need them to transfer risks. Whenever there's coffee around, they can work with the market. Yeah. There's always a moment that you can tell whether there's a little bit more or a little bit less and how that's going to impact the market. Thank you.
I'm going to call Claudio right now. And the reason we chose StoneX and Rabobank is that both companies have a whole team of dedicated researchers. So the purpose was to bring high-level information. Claudio. Hi, everyone. So good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation and thank you for the opportunity. And let me show you a little bit how we applied our methodologies on field to know the estimate of crops, and then having like a world view, and then a little bit of climate. So what you can see here in green is the states where we cover our survey, our crop tour, as we call it. And we have 71 points in Brazil, 200 for Robusta, and the rest is Arabica. We've covered around 94% of the sampling. And the methodology is quite simple. We go to the crops, we take a look at the plants, we see how many liters they have, and we convert that to bags per hectare. And we extract lots of information regarding diseases, vegetation state, and if the farm has irrigation or not. This is the map of the points that I mentioned and everything that we've elicited, covering around 6 states and 5 coffee regions. First of all, it's about Robusta that we did in the state of Espírito Santo and in Rondônia. First of all, we have Espírito Santo, and we expect a drop in the crop in Espírito Santo because we had a record last year. We had an estimate of 19 million. And we've realized that it's a natural drop because plants produced a lot in the previous crop. And that is a normal, regular drop. That is an expansion of 1%. It's not very high as the other regions, but it's 100% of all points, and we saw that they were properly irrigated. So producers were investing in irrigation and technology in that state. In Bahia, we expect 3.2, an increase of 2.6 in that area, result of having a very similar crop to the one we had last year. And we expect to have good production in the state. In the state of Rondônia, we expect 3.2, high productivity and stability in the growth area. So we know that Rondônia has been growing too much, but we haven't seen that growth in the state. However, we know that we have, but it's not as clear. Moving to Arabica, in São Paulo and Espírito Santo, and starting with the south of Minas. We started with 18.1 million. It's not a record, because our record was in 20 and 21 with 20.4 million. And situation there was quite different. We see both low productivity and high productivity. We have in Virginia, Três Pontas, Alfenas, and great production in Resende that ends up compensating the production. And then we have expansion in the area, but not as much as in the Zona da Mata and Espírito Santo. In Minas, it's the place where we saw the greatest expansion in Brazil. And we can see around 2%, having like a 10.3 million record and high productivity. And then around Manguaçu, we don't have that anymore. We cannot grow coffee anymore. So people are expanding for Caraitinga and other neighboring cities. Now Espírito Santo, Arabica, 4.7 million, being an area for expansion for 8.9, and crops with good productivity, with good production, and investors investing in good practices and irrigation, and in São Paulo as well. We expect 5.3 million. It's not a record either, but it's a good production. And then we have the expansion area that it's smaller than 1%, lower than 1% actually. And people are using, especially a zero crop that has been bringing like impact in 5.3, and an expansion of less than 1%. This is just with the development of the crop that is well developed in that region. In the Cerrado, we expect a record, 7.1. This is an expansion that is around 1.3%. The region there hasn't produced that much in 2 years, and it's going to produce now. And we have we expect great profit in that region. This is our closure when we think about the 3 last crops for each region. And the record of 73.2, if we round up, it's 73.2. So both Conilon and Arabica, they are not an absolute record now, but both combined together, they become a record if we add them all. If we get Arabica from the bank was in 2021, and in Conilon was last year with 25.6. Regarding profit, due to good water and rainfall that we have in the whole production belt, the capitalized producer doing like fertilizing, we expect to have good revenue, even better than last year. And that in some locations they had problems of sieving, especially high incidence of gel mocha. It interfered in the sieve 17-18. So we expect a good production within the average or even better than last year. And the production is the grain. The more grain, we have more production. And this is what we are expecting our performance. But we will see that when it's around like 40 or 50%, we'll understand how that performance in that crop 2027 is. So when the crop comes in, it's a large bulk of coffee. So are we going to replenish stocks? So we have good revision, just like Oscar. It will in part, but we will need another crop with a large volume to bring some extra breath in the market. And producers are holding coffee maybe to have like new peaks because maybe the weather conditions can damage, especially cold fronts. This is a little bit about storage. It's a little bit low, especially in the ice and in Europe. They're historically low, causing all this this float in the market. The pace of export in 3 years that are very, very low, both in the accumulated and month after month. April was the first time that we had more than 25. So for April, it was a little bit better than April last year. With that, the low storages interfere in the differentiators that make buyer to choose coffee from other sources. And a little bit now, the crop in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Colombia. We estimate around 29.3 million in Vietnam, 2% smaller than last year, but still good production, good harvest expectations. And as they enter the dry season, we have the grain filling stage. So for Indonesia, we expect 11.5 millions. The harvest was similar to last year, but they had news that there was rain during the harvest. And then the plants started blossoming, triggered flowering, which is likely to be lost. I need to keep a close analysis to see how that factor is going to develop. And in Colombia, we estimate 13.8 million bags, a little bit better than last year, 7.8 in the year-on-year. And dry weather will favor the crop. This is our global number. So we are going to close with 181 million bags around the world. It's a superávit that will abound like 8.7 million. It's way better than last year. The last harvest was 0.8. And a little bit of consumption now, the global coffee consumption. So Europe, we know it's a consolidated, stable, but not very elastic market. The US, they have a large volume, but they're resilient in the consumption. For the producing countries, we can see structural steady growth. But demand here is high, and we see that it's in Asia, emerging Asia. So I brought a little bit like China, India as a propeller of that demand. And Brazil, even though the Brazilian Association of Coffee Industries said that we were in a low phase last year due to inflation and high prices of coffee, and in Oceania, around Australia, we are having like a 0-0 demand. So the key point here is that demand is going to be a propeller in the Asian countries. That's the takeaway, the key takeaway of this slide. And I've brought some news. So Luckin Coffee in the first quarter they opened 248 new stores, and they closed with almost 34,000. Blue Tokai Hindi, they opened 200 new cafes across India. And in Brazil, we have Juan Valdez opening the first store in Brazil in the countryside of São Paulo. We expect 100 stores in Brazil by 2028. So regarding demand, when prices go up, there is an effect on consumption, yes, but we readjust in that mix to have like a less volume impact on volume. So high prices will brush on demand, but it would not destroy it. But consumer will not quit drinking coffee. They will adjust how much they will drink. I think that's the takeaway thing. That's the key message. There is a mix of like reformulating the blends. Now moving on to the consequences of El Nino that everybody is afraid, and I decided to bring that to my presentation. El Nino in Brazil has a different dynamics. In the south region, it brings above average rainfall. In the northern region, we have precipitation deficit, especially in the Amazon region in the northeast. And in the southwest, where we are, increases in temperature with periods of drought and heavy rains. And that can lead to problems regarding the city's infrastructure, like landslides. And El Nino is a little bit, it's far from being an agricultural problem. With the heat waves, it might bring like respiratory problems for the population, proliferation of like insects that bring diseases, natural disasters, of course, and energy problems in reduction in hydroelectric generations in areas with less rain. Not to mention that affects the whole agricultural ecosystem, not only in Brazil, but in the world. This diagram is from 1950 up to 2025. Above is El Nino and below is La Nina. The blue dots are events of very cold wind, frost in some places. You have El Nino, usually we have 7 points, and La Nina we have 9 points. So that doesn't mean that when we come out of El Nino and there is not the possibility of frost. So it doesn't matter that the world is warmer, this frost is not disregarded because we can see that in the distribution of these blue dots. And now speaking a little of our numbers regarding the expansion of coffee. So we estimate for Arabica and Conilon 1.94% in the expansion of the coffee park in Brazil. There are some problems there because we think about the excess of offer of coffee that bring the price to a margin. Investors come to the plane without knowing the commodity that much and without much operational and financial and structure prepared to face those low periods. And some of these producers suffer. They don't have the proper knowledge. They suffer with that low period of coffee. And as a consequence, if we have lower prices of the coffee bag, very likely the price for the hectare will also drop. This is a little bit about our relationship with exchange. I've considered fertilizer 25/20. Even though it's going up, we can see that the average is, they're beginning to reach average. It's 1.5 in the beginning of the year, and now it's a little bit above 2.6. That's a loss when we for the rural producer. This is a little bit of geopolitics just to show what was causing this volatility. So the Hormuz Strait, the UDR at the end of the year, and the relations, especially with China and the United States. This is the timeline, starting with the frustrated crop, last crop. So we start that with the tariff surge with Trump, consumption of stock, and UDR beginning 2025, and now UDR in 2026. Hormuz Strait war again, influencing in oil and energy and fertilizers. And now in current moment, we have the El Nino. And for the future, we have elections both in Brazil and the U.S.
That's a little bit of a summary of those numbers. So we're expecting 181 million bags this year. We estimate Brazilian offer to 73 million bags. And then demand of 0.8. A little bit below, and that's due to the pressure brought by inflation. And then geopolitics as a whole. So wars, fertilizer prices, oil that's directly related to the costs of planting. That's basically what I had to share with you. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Wow, congratulations. Amazing presentation. On behalf of the Commercial Association, I'd like to thank you and take our thank you to the Rabo Bank. I have to say, I miss them, and I hope to have more of them here with us next time. Your information that you brought here is very robust. I'd like to ask the organization to bring up the QR code. We're going to try to share some of the questions up here. Let's see how much time we have. Just a reminder that after this panel, we'll have another panel. I think they complement each other. We'll be talking about traders. So I suggest that you hang in there. We're coming to the end. Claudio, I have a question. Let's talk a little bit more about the consequences of El Nino. Currently, we only talk about two things in Brazil. Is Neymar going to the national team? And now we only talk about El Nino. So let's talk about El Nino. We already know about Neymar. Are we actually going to feel its impact? Are we going to feel it in the early rains? And will it have an impact in the next crop? You mentioned that it brings more water towards the south part of Brazil, drought towards the north. But it tends to delay the beginning of the rain season in the main coffee producing area of Brazil. I know this is a hard question. But what can you predict in terms of the next crop, in terms of Robusta and Arabica? So these areas have been growing. Let's think about El Nino then. Let's say there are no negative impact to the blossoming processes. Whenever El Nino has brought a lack of rain during the blossoming period, we saw a decrease in the production. We are expecting a crop that's a little bit under the current volume. The number is not very consolidated at this point. Of course, we'll be going out in the field. We'll be doing this towards the end of the year. That's when the trees are budding, and that will help us to have more certainty. Again, the expectation is to be a little bit below average. This crop's average. Rabobank, we should have these numbers towards the end of the year. So I'm sorry, I can't share those forecasts with you now, but the expectation is to be a little bit below. Thank you. Rabobank has a strong global presence. It's an European bank. What's your opinion about the UDR? Is there any chance that it might be postponed? Or shall we see it start to take roots next year? The UDR was postponed exactly for the reason that the Europeans could not absorb this volume of data, especially when it comes to Brazilian data. Well, I've heard a lot about it. This forest code and forest legislation will be implemented. They've given us some time. We've had time to get ready and to have better monitoring conditions. Now, the question is it actually going to be postponed again? That's another question that will stay up in the air. I'd like to ask a question now to the two of you. It's a straightforward question. I'm going to start with my friend Oscar here. What month and what year? And what year do you believe will be in a carryover structure? So he made me start thinking about the next crop. You know that I don't like to think about the next crop. But I have a challenge for you. Let me tell you this. Brazil did amazing work the last few years. It avoided those biannual changes, those biannual fluctuations. And it's done so by the way it prunes, the way it works the field. And we've had many elements, including the weather. Yeah, we've seen like all the coffee trees are heavy with fruit. So I think this is the time that they're going to take a rest. Arabica coffee likes that rest. Robusta does as well. So I don't know. Now I think that time after blossoming, I'd go out on a limb and say this. You want a month? Okay. I'd say May next year. By then, we should be on cash and carry. That, if we don't have any problems during the blossoming period. Great. That's why I like Oscar so much. Yeah. He doesn't shy away from the tough questions. Would you like to take a stab at this? What's Rabobank vision? Like, when do we move to the cash and carry? Well, let's say there is no scarcity of water, there is no negative impact in the production, then I agree with Oscar. Yeah, by then we should have a good idea with what is happening with the crop in Brazil. By then, we'll know how El Nino will have impacted Brazil. I think the likelihood that this will happen earlier is bigger than otherwise. So if there's a higher incidence of rain, we could have a good crop, and which could brought by the inversion that was mentioned earlier. So we're starting to answer some of the questions that are sent by the audience. Very interesting question, actually. In my opinion, the seminar is marked by consensus. We've had two separate research teams, and the numbers are very similar. I've been in the market for around 25 years, and historically, I've never seen such consensus in the data that I see. Here's one of the questions that came up. We saw that there was an increase in Robusta land at around 4%, and then Arabica at around 2%. The question specific about Robusta. When's the market going to start benefiting from these extra planted area? Robusta, just like Arabica, takes around 2 years to start producing, and then 3 years for actually good numbers in production. So let's take that increment into account. I think we should be looking at somewhere between the second and third year. I know there are lots of Arabica producers that are starting to plant Conilon, which is really interesting. It's coffee too. But it demands a very different type of structure. So I thought it was interesting that farmers were embracing this new type of coffee. After all, these are regions that allow both crops. um, it's well. In order to give you a number, I need to understand where it was planted the year before. Here, let's make it easier. When are we going to get to 30 million and overtake Vietnam? I'd risk to say 2028, 29. By then, Brazil will probably be the largest Robusta producer in the world. Amazing, amazing. Rabobank did something I really liked. You shared something really interesting here. There is a new farmer profile. Not everyone has the same kind of oomph to deal with the challenges that coffee demands. Two years ago, I made a comment. I said, 5 years from then, Brazil will be the largest Robusta producer. And I'm repeating that here. I say, less than 2 years from now, we are going to be the largest producer of Robusta in the world. That's why I like to sit beside him. Yeah, we're always listening to each other. Traders, right? That's a lot. Now let's answer another question. You've been talking about these excesses. You know, there used to be $1 million question that's worth a lot more today. When are we going to see the differential catch up with this? Today we're seeing in Brazil it's 30 above. When is the market going to see these numbers that you shared with us today? That's a tough one. The market will get into a cash and carry model. The market will, at some point, pay for that coffee, and we're saying that, oh, that movement is only going to start next May. Everything going well. Here's what I think we can expect. We may go back to a regular year. So we need to use that old formula. We need to apply it to Robusta, Arabica, and both coffee varieties are part of the Brazilian blend. It will depend whether Arabica is on the low or Robusta is on the low. There's going to be a lot of Brazilian coffee, but the mixture, the ratio might be different. I'd expect a bearish trend. I agree with Oscar. I think that's basically it. The farter is holding their stocks too much, and I think that's having an impact. If you allow me, I think we should talk about the pipeline and how empty it is. I think the Brazilian farmer needs to stay competitive. But I'll repeat my opinion. It may take a little bit longer, and this is because of this characteristic that we're seeing in the pipeline. Sorry, the organization team is telling me that our time's almost up. I tend to always ask this question when I'm a moderator. I don't want to veer away from it, so I'm going to start with Claudio. Pretend I'm the genie in the lamp, and I allow you one wish, obviously for the coffee market. What would be your desire? There's one exception. You can't ask the market to go back to cash and carry. Everyone has been talking about El Nino. I hope it doesn't have a negative impact, and especially for Brazil. Oscar, same question for you. I hope the global market stays around 250, so everyone can buy and we can produce the coffee that they want to consume. Love both answers. And I think we need to stay balanced. Yeah, we live in this crazy world, very unsettled. I hope that at least coffee can give us that certainty, that sturdiness. I'd like once again to thank all our friends that took part in this edition of the coffee seminar. And I'd like to invite you to help us in the next edition. Please answer the questions of the survey we're going to share with you. Our goal is to keep improving. So once again, thank you all. Thank you, Claudio. Take my thank you back to Rabobank. Thank you, StoneX. Enjoy the seminar. There's a lot happening still. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all participants in this panel. Please take your place for the official photo.
E enquanto isso, vamos ver como fica.
In the meantime, let's have a look at the digital facilitation. Here's what our artists have come up with during this panel. Here are images, sentences, phrases. Here are the results. You can also check them out on the app. We now have a break, a little coffee break. A reminder, we'll have our closing party at the Santos Municipal Market starting at 7:30 p.m. You can also fill our satisfaction survey. Just scan the QR code. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.